Hi guys. I've had some questions about my process of planning my trips to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, especially since I live so many hours away and have to truly plan these things. So I thought I'd do a video explaining my process. I have some notes, so if I look down, that's why. So we start off with about a month out, or a lot of times on the way home from the trip that I've just finished. I will start thinking in my mind what section of the park I want to hike in. When I started out, I thought I would break it down into regions. Then I realized that wasn't going to work. So then what I started to focus on was get the hard hikes out of the way. That's just how I am. So right now I'm working on finishing up North Carolina. So in my mind, if I'm coming home from a trip or I'm about a month out, I'm going to think, okay, what trails in North Carolina do I still need? And then from there, I will map out either a 3-day route or a 4-day route, depending on how much time I have. If I'm doing a 3-day route, I usually get about 15 miles, map miles down for sure. And then a 4-day is about 20 map miles. So that's what I'm looking for. Once I do that, then I look at waypoints like campsites, shelters, junctions, getting ideas of if I'm going to meet somebody, where's a good place to meet them, or where, am I going to be able to have time to kind of take my pack off and have lunch or break or what have you. I'll also study elevation guides, stream crossing information. I look at all sorts of maps, look at the Brown Book, and everybody talks about the Brown Book, the Hiking Trails of the Smokies, I think is what it's called, but it's a brown book. That's why we call it that. I go onto YouTube. I do as much research as I can. Past the popular trails, it is hard to find information, but sometimes I'll find there's several people out there like me who are documenting, maybe not their entire 900-mile journey, but some people have hit trails that I haven't hit, so that's very useful to me. I'll use the Far Out guide and Gaia. Far Out used to be called Gut Hook, and it's really for long trails like the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail. But there are 3 long trails that run through the Smoky Mountains that is on Far Out, and that is the Appalachian Trail, the Benton MacKaye Trail, and the Mountains to Sea Trail. And that gives such a great host of knowledge on one small app that you can use when you're on airplane mode. So I'll go to that and I'll kind of get some ideas. And if I don't have that, then I'll use Gaia. I love Gaia. I'll also, if I'm going over some stream crossings that are mentioned, either one on the dollar map that you mark your 900-miler on, or even just ones that I know that might be some, could be pretty shady, I will look on the USGS, I think it's called, I've got it down here, Water Data for the Nation. And usually I stick to Townsend because that is kind of the marker for the entire park. So, and I'll try to put links for all of this down below so that you have kind of an idea of what I do. But I'll look at that and make sure that the water table is, for that, it's around 2. If it's any higher than that, then the streams all over the park are going to be swollen and could be sketch. So that's all around a month beforehand. 2 weeks out, I generally start looking at the long-range weather forecasts. I use various ones. I use NOAA, I use weather.com, AccuWeather, just to kind of correlate what they're saying about that far in advance, which we all know weather changes. But at 2 weeks out, it gives me a general idea what I'm expecting. I'll make my campsite or my shelter reservations at that point. Generally, you can make them 30 days out, but if I'm not sure of a route, and sometimes I have several different areas that I'm looking at depending on so many different factors, but usually 2 weeks out, I really have narrowed it down, and usually I've narrowed it down to a couple routes that go around the same shelters and campsites. So that helps me. So I'll be making those reservations. I'll start pulling out my gear, whether it's summer versus winter, rainy versus super rainy. There's sunshine in the Smokies, but if you're there for a few days, you're going to have rain at some point. And then I'll also make my accompanying arrangements if I need a hotel room before or after my trip. If I need a car shuttle, boat shuttle, anything like that. If I have friends that can meet me, maybe we'll coordinate times, and usually 2 weeks out is a good time to do that. And then we get to a few days out. Now, when we're a few days away, that's when I start looking at the mountain weather forecast. It generally only gives you, I think at the max, maybe 5 days out, but it's very accurate, and it is specifically for mountain ranges. It gives you a base weather, it gives you a mid-range, and it gives you at elevation. It's really helpful, and especially for the Smokies, because the weather may be sunny in Townsend or Gatlinburg, and it may be rainy or snowy and 20 degrees cooler on the mountaintop. So, but you know, you want to wait until you're just a couple days out for that information for it to be as accurate as possible. But that's a pro tip right there. I make my trip plan, which I know you don't have to have a trip plan. I think I have a video up about how to make a trip plan. But for me, it is super easy. It has all of the pertinent information. I print one off for my husband. I print one off for under the seat of my car, which I also put my shelter reservation under there as well. As it was told to me in the backcountry, or from a backcountry phone call, that they don't get into your car. But you never know when there's a situation where if they can relate you to your car and you have your trip plan in there, you've given them, you know, the color of your tent, how many days you're going to be out, what route you're taking, that kinds of things that I think is just, I mean, it takes you less than 10 minutes to put it together. So for me, it's just a peace of mind. So I'll do that a few days out, and then I'll finalize my gear and my food. So yeah, that's pretty much my plan. It's a pretty basic plan. I could get more into detail, but we don't want a 40-minute video. But it kind of gives you an idea of where my brain goes whenever I'm putting together these trips. I wanted to, though, go over a couple examples of how some trips have changed for me. One specific question that I didn't answer on YouTube, but I thought I may go into depth is, do you ever reserve several campsites and you just stop at the one that you're, you know, that you can make it to that day? I've never done that, and I've never had that thought to do that. I'm sure that's one way to do it. The only thing I would caution about with that is, especially in the busy season on shelters especially, but even campsites that get busy on the summer, you know, if you do that, you could be taking, especially if you have more than one person in your group, you could be taking away reservations that other people could use. But that being said, there's not a lot of super busy campsites in the Smokies. Shelters are another thing. But so if you're going into the backcountry and you can tell that they still have 5 or 6 campsites open, and the next one does, and the next one does, and they're all in a row, and you're like, I don't know how far I'll get, you could absolutely do that. It's very, very hard to get a hold of the backcountry office to change your reservation while you're on your trip. So if that's the way that you need to do it, that's fine. But what I do is I just really caution myself, and I make sure that whatever route I have going on, and of course anything can happen, but whatever route I have going on, I'm going to be able to stop the same place on each of those routes. And then that way, if I have to change my plan while I'm on the trail, I don't have to change my reservations. So, but I did have a couple examples. So my very first trip, which was February of 2021, that was my very first backpacking trip in the Great Smoky Mountains. It dumped snow on me night 2, which I knew and I was prepared. So I didn't have to change my route, but I did have people, I went looped up from West Prong up to the AT and then back down to campsite 9. And when I was up at Russellfield Shelter, there were locals up there who were going to stay the night. They were cooking food in the fireplace, and they were trying to get me to stay there. And I could have probably changed my plans, but then I wouldn't have gotten as many miles in. So, I mean, there are opportunities for you to go, okay, I can change it. But because I probably could have gotten service up there, I'm not certain. But I didn't change it. So what else did I want to put on here? Oh, that I knew that there was snowpack. I'd actually made 2 routes for my first trip. One was West Prong, Finley Cane, Crib Gap, Crooked Arm. I stayed at campsite 6 that night. It was a small but a gorgeous night. It was beautiful, beautiful. And then I went up Anthony Creek the next day, Russellfield, Appalachian Trail, Boat Mountain, Anthony Creek, Boat Mountain, and West Prong the next day. Total of 31 miles. I knew I could do that much. My first choice, though, because I kind of wanted to be on 441, was I was going to start at the Kephart Prong Trail. I was going to go up Grassy Branch, Dry Sluice, the AT, Sweat Heifer, and then back down, so like a lollipop back down Kephart Prong. And I was going to stay at that shelter. That was only going to be 14 miles, and I obviously knew I could do that. And I think that was why at first that's what I wanted to do, because that was super easy for me. The problem with that was this was winter, and 441 closes almost at the drop of a hat anytime there's weather, because they don't prepare their weather or their roads with the salt that everybody else does for environmental reasons. And so it closes a lot, and I knew it was going to, and it did close. So at the last minute, I pivoted. I was within that 2-week window. Maybe I didn't make the reservations that far out, but I was able to pivot and do my second route, and I had no problem. So there's a situation where I did have to kind of go from plan A to plan B, but I didn't have to have any extra reservations. It is an option. I just wanted to go over what I did. And then October of 2022, this is one where I was hiking with someone else. I had in mind a couple different routes that I wanted to go, and I needed extra miles that my hiking partner didn't need. So I had several different routes planned out as to what my level of tiredness once I had done a full 8 miles before I met up with him. And then we were doing 6 miles to camp. And then I was going to kind of do an extra offshoot. And I thought, well, I could do that or I could leave that. But no matter what, I was still going to stay at that same campsite. And then we had 2 different options that we could do as far as the next day, because we were staying at one campsite for 2 nights up on 13. And so I just adjusted my route based on what he needed and my level at that time, like I said, how tired I was or anything. So it was super easy to just go, okay, I need these. Now, when I've got 240 miles left, I think. So that's going to be a little harder to do. But I also think that my trips soon, not right now, are going to start getting smaller and smaller as well. So I can always keep you updated on that, how I handle that. But I just kind of wanted to go over that process, if you will. And if you have any other questions, let me know and I can answer those questions. But I do have to plan. I am a planner, but I do have to plan in order to make sure that I'm successful each time I go down to the Smokies. And I have been. I'm trying to stay as organized to have a successful trip as possible so that I can maximize my miles when I'm there, since I have such a long way to go. I hope this helps any of you who are also in that same situation. If you have any other questions, drop it down below. Let me know, and I can try to further answer those. But yeah, I hope you got some good information out of this, and thank you for watching.